Hello everyone, how's it going? It's Ben, welcome to the Bonny Rackham. Woo-wee, do we have an episode ahead of us? Yeah, this is packed. This episode was so good. So let's just get straight into this one. This is Season 3, Episode 7. Absolutely kicking into another gear. Let's get going and let's get a title sorted.
Get us underway.
Okay, yeah, so this one I have decided to call Villains. A lot of talk again about being perceived as the villain. Jack and Woods Rogers, they get into it. Woods Rogers and Flint, they get into it. Max is struggling with playing the villain in her part in deceiving Anne. Eleanor understanding her faults a little bit and how she's been perceived as the villain before, and she wants to change that narrative. While Silver truly acts like a villain in taking down another one once and for all. Yeah, really a perfect title for this one. So yeah, without further ado, let's get a brief summary and get that rating sorted.
First item.
So yeah, this one is written by Mark Berensky and Josh Rothenberger. Mark Berensky has been involved in the writing team before, but Josh Rothenberger is a new name to add to the many others now. As is Rob Bailey, a new name in the director's chair, which is exciting, and yeah, he does quite the job. So yeah, I'm really going to breeze through the brief summary today because there's so much. Just a lot of great character stuff this episode. Max and Eleanor are having to take a good look at where they are, where they want to be, as Max crosses a line, lying to Anne. Jack has some home truths for Woods Rogers, and he has some truths for Flint. Eleanor and Woods Rogers take their relationship to the next level. Vane learns it's now a rescue mission to get Jack back, and Silver makes an impactful return to Nassau with a warning to shake up the island and a framed skull. It's an amazing episode with some great stuff to go over. One I rate really highly, and I have since the first watch. And yeah, this has kind of juggled between I couldn't land on something. It's gone from like 9.6 to 9.8. So I think I'm going to compromise and put it as a 9.7. So yeah, let's just get into it.
Next item.
Okay, so we're going to quickly chat Maroon, Queen and Madi, and then the Ranger crew. Then Max, Eleanor and Woods Rogers, finishing on Silver and Flint. Woods Rogers will be the character that kind of scatters about a bit in this episode because he pops up in quite a lot of people's chat. So yeah, he's going to be the one that's kind of in that chat and that chat and that chat, but it'll work out. So yeah, Flint and Vane are now on Maroon Island and they're filling the Queen in on what's been happening about Jack. Understandably, the Queen, she's not too impressed. Flint went to get a fleet and he's returned empty-handed, bar Vane. Vane then fills her in on the gems in Jack's possession and says if they can find it first, they can dictate what happens next. So yeah, Flint makes his proposal for the next move. Use the cash, Jack's stash, to lure Woods Rogers into one big kind of panicked battle. And I think it might be Joshua, I've still got to check that is him, who asks, what battlefield is this that would allow us to defeat that kind of force? And Flint answers simply, here. And yeah, you see the Queen react to that. Yeah, remember it took her a lot of convincing, she's built a safe haven here and risking a lot in trusting Flint. And so far, Flint's just not living up to the talk. It's not going great. So she orders everyone to leave and she speaks with Flint alone. She's asking legit important battle questions. I didn't write down all the specifics, but yeah, it's important strategic stuff. And they're discussing how bad the odds are against them, and Flint only really has, I don't know yet, as answers. Yeah, and after he answers like that a couple of times, she understandably loses her temper a bit. I'm not going out there with I don't know yet. Yeah, completely fair. She says she won't go to her people telling them to just go all in, and risk their lives when the outcome is so unclear. Flint says, am I certain we will prevail? No, but the odds will never be better than they are right now in this moment. Of that I am most certain. With little choice now, this has already hit the momentum it has. The Queen has just little choice now but to commit. It's made clear their immediate plan is to chase up Jack, and she asks him, while there, to collect a stockpile Mr. Scott had ready for them for an occasion such as this. She says with Mr. Scott not being able to go with them, she will send the next best thing, and we see Billy escorting Madi onto the walrus. Straight off the back of chatting to Silver last episode, she's got herself on board, and yeah, she's She's really now a fully important part of this, representing the Maroons, her mother. We don't see much more of the Queen now going forward, but yeah, she's another strong character that I really like. And even though she's wary still, and yeah, Flint's not completely come through on his promises, she's staying loyal to her word and commitment she gave this cause, the unity of pirates and slaves. And she's thinking smart and like a true leader, and reaffirming to Flint, yeah, that this is their battle as much as it is his. She says, my word and your word will govern in consort or not at all. And yeah, she sort of hands the reins over to Maddie a bit when she says, when I'm not present, that word shall be given by my daughter. And we see Maddie give Flint a little nod on deck and he returns it. But as a first time viewer, you wonder, is this going to work? You know, we already got a small teaser last episode of the cultural differences that might happen on board. So yeah, great teaser scene for Maddie's next phase. As for Maddie, there's not really a lot to go over. She features in a couple of scenes that I'd rather go over from the perspective of Silver or the others in it. Otherwise, once they land on Nassau, she goes to sort out the weapons with Emmy. Emmy, remember, was taken on by Scott way back in season 1. So she's been part of this secret operation for a while. And Maddie just informs her that Mr. Scott is dying and asks the favour regarding the weapons. And yeah, Emmy confirms their transfer to the ship, and they do. And Maddie talks a little bit about her memories on Nassau. She can't remember anything specific, but yeah, she knows she's been here. A little bit of deja vu, I think, maybe. Knows she knew Eleanor and they were playmates as children, now on opposing sides. So yeah, something for the future kind of being sown there, but otherwise nothing specific to go into with Maddie with this episode. So yeah, with that being said, let's get into Anne, Jack, with a little bit of Vane and Adele and Featherstone. So yeah, this episode opens with Max meeting up with Anne. A lot to chat about with Max this episode, very busy Max episode, but I want to chat her and Eleanor together, so I'll just do this scene from Anne's perspective for now. So yeah, Max tells her she's alone, and you know, we learn she left a note in the cave telling her that Jack's been arrested in that cave of all places. How very dare she? And yeah, Max tells her about the Spanish, learning of the cash, and she tries to talk Woods Rogers up a bit, but Anne could care less, you know, as she says in her own way, and says Jack doesn't want it turned over, or it would be him that'd be delivering the message. And so Max lies to her about Jack's treatment, tells Anne they're hurting him for his defiance. Max lays it on really thick. And Anne doesn't know the truth, but a truth she does know, I think, and understand in this moment, is Max isn't on their side anymore. She knows she's not really there for Jack's sake like she claims. Yeah, I think her fuck you is a fuck you if you're lying and using this against me because you know it will work, and fuck you if you're not lying and truly against us in knowing, you know, what this will be doing to me. Using Jack against me like you promised you'd never do, would never happen. And Max will go over how Anne will be internalising this information with Eleanor in a bit. And Max says surrender the cash and she'll see to it that Jack is freed. She has her word. But yeah, that I trust you a few episodes ago from Anne no longer stands. So yeah, she just rides off. Tough for Anne, yeah, because she'll know with Max there's likely a spin on the truth in there. But she knows, I think, that, yeah, this is very self-serving for Max. So she can't just take her word anymore. And so we get Jack's reaction to learning of this meeting. So yeah, Woods Rogers goes to visit Jack and we see he's fine. No bruises, no cuts. He's in a dank dungeon, but physically he's good. Thank God. Woods Rogers informs him, you know, Anne should be complying soon. And again, just this great unspoken bond, understanding Jack and Anne have of each other at any given moment now. He works out quickly that she's been fed some BS on him being tortured. And you can just see him feel that pain for her. He'll know the struggle she'll be having at this point. Woods Rogers points out that if the street sees that he's been harming Jack, it would go against him, and that Jack's been counting on that. So yeah, this way, no one hears it but her. He gets what he needs, and no one is harmed. And a big line from Woods Rogers to counter a line that he says at the end of the episode. He says, I face a number of dangers ahead in stabilising Nassau. The one I will resist to the limits of my ability is to allow myself to be cast as its villain. About that. About that. Great comment I saw on a recent reaction. You know, I watch other people's reaction and stuff. And a really good comment I saw on someone who's around this sort of point in the show. Woods Rogers is as bad as any pirate he's ever stood in judgment of. He just gets to hide his brutality behind the law and civilization. I thought that summed him up really well. And the fact, at this point at least, I mean, he knows his true face. He keeps it hidden for a reason. But I feel like he thinks he's the smartest person in every room. The most reasonable man in every room. So when Jack calls him out in a moment, or when Flint says, nah, a bit later, he just doesn't understand it. Because to him, he's being so reasonable about it all. He just cannot see the hypocrisy. But Jack's about to point it out, as only Jack can. So yeah, Woods Rogers says, when the cash is being delivered, they'll then both be free to do as they please. He goes to leave, but yeah, Jack being Jack, he just can't let it go. And he asks him if he's married, and yeah, I forget if we already learned that if he was. I think we might have got a line in his first appearance, maybe. But yeah, Jack asks him how does he think she'd feel if she learned he was suffering some awful degrading torture and the only way it would end would be to betray his trust and no one was harmed, he says sarcastically. Oh, Max, because this plotting, this would all be Max's idea, I bet. Knew exactly what would upset Anne and how she'll comply, as does Jack in this moment. And Jack would win quote of the episode if Silver didn't drop a banger later. But Jack says, we're all villains in Nassau. Don't think because you're new, you're any different. Jack absolutely calls it. He's saying, you're no better than any of us. Look what you're doing to achieving your means. Lies and deceit, that them and us thing. Pirates and civilization showing itself so well again. It'll come up more in this episode. The side who thinks they have the moral high ground, in this case, Woods Rogers, prepared to sink to a low to get an end result. As I said last episode, yeah, Jack's had him made from the jump. And yeah, this, again, will come back around with Flint later with Woods Rogers. So put a little pin in that for now. So most of Anne and Jack's remaining stuff is sort of plot. I suppose it makes sense to quickly chat Mrs. Hudson. Yeah, so we get another little scene with her. She's sat pretending to read and relaying a message on, telling this guy about the exchange, how Jack will be released once it happens. And the guy she's speaking to is English, very English. I've said before, and I've kind of tried to skirt around it, but hands up, I fully don't understand what's going on with this small subplot with Mrs. Hudson. I'm kind of just going with it as it happens. Yeah, the guy basically saying the cash won't be enough anymore, and maybe she suggests they hand over something more, i.e. Jack. So she goes to Eleanor and Woods Rogers to pass this information on. I will come back to Max and Eleanor's perspective on all this, as I say, but while they're in deep conversation about this new development from Mrs. Hudson, Featherstone enters, wanting to talk business, just as Eleanor says either Jack is surrendered with the gold or Nassau burns. So yeah, he makes himself scarce when he realises it's pretty intense in there right now. But yeah, great timing for us and for my faves. Because yeah, we'll see in the next few episodes, although him and Adele are playing their part and, doing their best to muck in with this new kind of regime, there's still loyalty and old kind of habits still in there for them both, which is good. So cut to later and Vane sneaking around Nassau in the dead of night. Obviously, some things are past there as well, but we can pop back to them. And yeah, what a shot of him when he grabs Featherstone, and he comes out of the darkness. Shot of the episode for me, that one. Not much of Vane to really delve into today. It's more just plot stuff. Featherstone fills him in on the deception that's going to take place with Anne in the exchange. So Vane asks for his help in finding out where it's going to take place. And we get a little scene with Adele and Featherstone. She's not keen at first. She'll be the one to get the info on where the exchange will happen. And Featherstone sort of lays his fears that Woods Rogers actually might just be full of it. But if he's wrong, then it's no harm and no foul, pretty much. Adele obviously does have this loyalty and friendship with Max, which we'll see is respected by Max in the next couple of episodes. But yeah, there is definitely something between her and Featherstone now, because she's going to play her part in this plan. And otherwise, of course, with this gang, the final thing to discuss is the exchange. And yeah, Anne plays it well. Anne just looking phenomenal in this scene. I can't even, come on, cheekbones, hello? And Clara Paget's eyes are just stunning. I love that at this point, somewhere along the line between the end of the last season and this one, costume and makeup were just Yeah, she's too gorgeous. It's taken too long to grime her up, and hiding her under the hat isn't fooling anyone anymore, you know. Just put her in a costume and shoot the damn scene. Like, obviously, it is part of her character development as well, I know, you know. She's had some money for a bit of zhuzh up, and she's not hiding under her hat anymore. But yeah, this and episode 10 Anne is just... Episode 10. Okay, I'm back. All right, let's back to the scene in question. But damn, yeah. So they do the exchange, and we see Anne realizes that Jack isn't there. First watch, you know, you're like, she is going to lose her shit, but she is relatively cool. You know, she draws her swords, but back off when they draw their guns, and she sort of watches them leave. And then we just see Vane sort of slowly appear behind her, and she says, "You better be right about this." So we learn, yeah, he got to her in time and she's up to date. And damn it, I really wanted to see that scene of them, you know, having that little meeting. But, yeah, unfortunately not. But there is a really quick scene at the end with her, Vane and Flint, just pretty much setting up the rescue mission. That's the bulk of the next episode. Flint's angry that they handed over the chest. But Vane's plan, yeah, it makes sense. With them having it and taking it at that point, time is against them. Jack would be in more immediate danger. But with Woods Rogers thinking he's won this one, time's on their side. He lays out the plan to intercept the caravan, carrying Jack and the treasure. And as Anne points out, either we get Jack and the cash, or we get nothing. And I love that it's Vane that sets this in motion. Flint, he wouldn't do all that for Jack, as we've just seen. He'd take that treasure there and then. No chance he'd do all this. With Vane making that decision, he's got no choice in the matter. They have to play it this way. Because Vane would rescue Jack. Ranger crew for the win. Just a short scene that ends that episode. But yeah, great setup for the rescue mission in next episode. So yeah, a lot going on plot-wise with Anne and Jack. And they will, or at least Anne will, play a part in Max's discussion in a moment. But yeah, I think we can leave the bulk of their kind of chat there. So yeah, let's just get into some Max and Eleanor, with again Woods Rogers going to be coming up in the discussion. Big drink for this one. This is a big episode. Alright, let's crack that open. I've never tried this before. Oh, it don't smell too hopeful. Tastes like Billy Bones' foot, but you know, it'll do. Alright. After her first scene with Anne, you know, which I don't need to go over again, as we will understand how hard that was for Max in these scenes to discuss. So yeah, Max joins Eleanor and Woods Rogers in his office. You know, she's confident Anne will comply because she knows Anne won't be able to handle the thought of Jack being tortured. Damn, Max, this is a cold move. She says it might take her a while, but she will play ball, meaning Anne. And we can clearly see that she is struggling with the betrayal, with this lie that she's made to Anne. I like when Woods Rogers questions, you know, how sure she is this will play out like this. And Max sort of stumbles on her words, and that Eleanor covers for her and just sort of says quietly, she knows. She can definitely relate to what is going on here internally with Max right now. This guilt, betraying a former lover. Eleanor's got them receipts. Eleanor and Max really merging in their similarities, fully in effect at this point and in their scenes. Full circle, you know, is going to be my word or phrase of the episode that I will repeat, forgetting I've said it at least twice already. Compact was apparently last episode's word. Damn, I said that a lot. But yeah, full circle will be this one. So yeah, their discussion continues alone now in Max's office. Previously Eleanor's office, of course. This is now after Mrs. Hudson's revelation about the new demand regarding Jack. And Max, she's understandably upset. I'm on her arse a little bit, but she's generally bothered, you know, that after giving her word to Anne, it's not going to be honoured. And Eleanor, yeah, she's trying to reason with her, but they have nothing to bargain with. Eleanor says if there was anything she could do, it would be done. I believe her. Like I say, both women start to understand each other a lot more now at this point. Eleanor knows the guilt Max is facing now, I think. So Max takes a big swig of alcohol. She knows she's about to nail the final, well, as far as she knows at this point in time, she's about to hammer a final nail in the coffin for her and Anne. As she'll say next episode, she thinks this is Anne's end that she is discussing right now, playing a part in bringing forward. So yeah, Max gives Eleanor the heads up that Anne will be furious when she learns they have lied to her, and she will resist. She pleads that the governor's men do all in their power not to hurt her, but I think she sort of knows it's a lost cause with Anne. And Eleanor reassures her that his men have been forbidden for firing first, for provoking, using any violence. But yeah, again, Max knows Anne. She knows the second she sees she's been played, she'll fight and she will likely die. Again, leading to great stuff that will go on with sort of Max next episode. So Max asks her why, as in, why are you looking out for Anne? And Eleanor says, out of respect for Max's partnership. Is season 3 Eleanor up for an MVP? I don't know. Give me another scene and we'll have a conversation about it. But yeah, she's looking out for Max. I mean, obviously, she's looking to keep things peaceful for Woods Rogers as well, and therefore herself. But she's still going out of her way a little bit here, I think. So yeah, Max is still feeling awful. Doesn't know what's worse, Anne dies fighting for Jack or survives without him. Even though we're not seeing much of them together, the Anne and Jack love just, shines through these bunch of episodes. It makes my heart happy to have them still feature strongly, even if they're only in discussion amongst other people. Yeah, so Eleanor and Max, they've continued drinking. They've obviously been at it a while. Yeah, have I mentioned that I love their scenes together? I really do. Yeah, Max still really feeling it, and she's glowering at the chair. And I think this is where she's finally realised the sacrifices and tough decisions it takes to lead, and she can understand Eleanor so much more. She says that fucking chair, remarks on promises it takes to get it and to keep it, how those promises have to be broken, loyalties and friends lost. She says one day when all this is settled here, we should burn that fucking chair. A lot of F-bombs in this episode from me and the show. So apologies in advance. Yeah, I don't think we actually see it burn at any point, do we? But it is more foreshadowing. So yeah, Max continues with spilling her guts. She can't seem to stop now that she's started. The alcohol's probably playing a part. She says, my God, I hated you. There was not a time where I could conceive ever forgiving you. And in this moment, I am you. Full circle for Max. Yeah, heartbreaking season 1 because Eleanor wouldn't leave with her. She chose Nassau. She chose the chair over her. And she's just gone and done pretty much the exact same thing. Why do I still love her though? I'm so angry at her, because Anne. But again, I can understand and I can respect her motives, and I can see she is really feeling it. She knows what she's done. She hates herself for it. It's okay, Max. It will work itself out in the end. But yeah, Eleanor remarks, her footing in this moment is far more precarious than hers. And yeah, Eleanor seemingly still not sure what lies in her future. And Max, ever the fly on the wall, says that's not what she hears. She's heard the soldiers saying her and Woods Rogers are inseparable. He relies on her more than any other. She says they sometimes say more. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but is Max playing this up a little bit about what she's heard? It does work in her benefit for Woods Rogers and Eleanor to hook up, that's for sure. She's learnt today, she's got a real ally in Eleanor once more. So in encouraging them to get closer means Eleanor is more secure in the loop, therefore she is. Interesting thought, and believable with Max. But yeah, either way, on hearing from Max her thoughts on the ethical dilemma that he's also facing in getting closer to her as well, Eleanor decides to pay him a visit. But yeah, back to that in just a moment. Let's quickly finish Max. So yeah, there is a short little plot scene with Max, Eleanor and Woods Rogers learning about what went down after Silver's visit, obviously to be discussed in full shortly. He learns of Silver's warning and knows they can't have men turning up on the beach to hear Flint's proposal if true. Woods Rogers, still playing by the book, asks for Max's support in stirring discontent on the street with Flint's threat. And then Eleanor suggests something he can do to help his cause, but we'll pop back to that. I just wanted to get that for Max's kind of background. So yeah, final Max moment scene. Like I say, really busy Max episode. So she puts it to the girls of the brothel. Normally they're getting info from the men's heads, but now she wants them putting it in there. How joining Flint's crew will be a problem for the governor. So they need to convince the men of the island what a bad idea that is. And yeah, this is where, much to Adele's dismay, we see that Max has recruited some help in a new but familiar madam. Mrs. Mapleton is back at the helm. Yeah, her "good evening, girls," and Adele's face is a picture. A much needed laugh in quite a heavy episode. Clearly not what Max wants either. but she is a businesswoman at the end of the day, and she is juggling a lot of plates at the moment. So yeah, it makes sense to let someone who knows the business kind of handle things for a while. Of course, she knows she can't trust her, as she points out when Mrs. Mapleton speaks to her alone. Max, yeah, she's still drowning her sorrows, and yeah, we just get a final full circle. Max is Eleanor in this situation with this last little scene. Mrs. Mapleton, you know, she's worked out she's troubled, and remarks she remembers Eleanor going through the same thing, learning to bear the weight of her authority and the awful and lonely compromises it demands. Basically, she's saying avoid the love, avoid the full-time partner thing. Then when you want a little bit, or the only thing you owe is a fee, basically. And she calls one of the girls, Georgia, to tend to Max. Well, doesn't Georgia look familiar, you know, to a certain someone? Again, yeah, Georgia about to play the part that she did for Eleanor on Mrs. Mapleton's suggestion way back when, you know, just before we joined them. Of course, Max being Max, she did her thing, and obviously used it to her advantage, and then some feelings got involved with her and Eleanor, and all that played out how it did. Yeah, again, just a sad, full circle moment for Max that sadly she's going to embrace and just fully commit to for a little while. Although no MVP nomination, still just a really strong Max episode for me. So yeah, I really wanted to make sure I covered all that. But okay, so yeah, back to Eleanor and Woods Rogers hooking up, and we'll get on to them. So yeah, what is Eleanor's motives in this moment? A true fondness? I don't know. When Max says his position is unforgiving as hers, I think Eleanor maybe sympathises with that. But this is Eleanor. Gameplay will be a factor, security, now she's got to this point. It's certainly not all one way, one or the other. It's not all romantic interest, sexual attraction, but it's definitely not all power and gameplay either now, to be fair to her. As to what percentage of each one is, I really can't say. I don't know if either of them could actually, you know. Yeah, if any viewers have any thoughts on that, on where more on the scale she is, let me know. Because yeah, I'm still just kind of, not sure. So yeah, as she enters, he sort of hesitates a moment. But yeah, with a beautiful woman entering, clearly one thing on her agenda, passion wins out in the heat of the moment. First romantic sex scene of the whole season. I think the only one. They were quite prominent first couple of seasons, but plot and storyline just happening so fast now, unless they're important plot points, such as here, you know, things are just kept moving, aren't they? Yeah, very different from her sex scenes with Vane, much slower and more tender. So yeah, that's interesting to note. So yeah, bit of an awkward afterglow. He's been silent, and when Eleanor kind of comments on it, he informs her that 8 of his men have fallen ill, doubled since he mentioned earlier as he was heading to Jack's cell. We got a little moment there. Yeah, and we learn the men are obviously unused to this island, to the viruses and the tropical diseases that the natives are immune to, and they're all going down like flies. And this is where we see where his head is at in terms of Eleanor. What a conflict this was for him, and how he's still not sure where her loyalties lie. Because she is fine. She is a native to the island, so immune. Except for her, he says, thinking out loud. They're not looking at each other during this, and we can see Eleanor listening to him speak, probably reaffirming her fears about her precarious situation. So she turns, you know, and he says nature is going to keep reminding him of the fact that she is not one of them. And she asks if he thinks she's a danger to him. He points out that he feels his connection to London disappear every day, so can only assume her connection to Nassau is growing again. He saw that last episode. He got a good glimpse of that. He thinks the instincts that kind of led her to prison will return, and she turns to him and says what they used to say about her loyalty was true. She would turn on anyone if it served her purpose, but reassures him, almost tearfully, she does not wish to be that way ever again. That chat with Max, I think, really affected her, because I believe her here. I believe her in this moment. I truly believe she does want to change, you know, and pledge her loyalty kind of all in for him, just jump in 2 feet with him. She says he has her loyalty, not for vengeance, not to take back what was once hers. When he asks, you know, then why, she leans in and they kiss. I believe she really wants to believe this about herself here. I think deep down maybe she knows it's not entirely true, but she really wants it to be. Whereas last few episodes, she's been maybe saying what he wants to hear with a bigger game in mind, mostly revenge on Charles. I think something changed this episode. Something small shifted. Again, Max and what she's going through morally, a big part of that, and seeing that firsthand has really got to Eleanor. But maybe ultimately knows, like he fears in this scene, old instincts might rear their head. And they do, just an episode later. Yeah, how I was doing my best, playing devil's advocate for good conversation for this podcast, got me bigging up Eleanor and Max in this episode, despite them being against my peoples. I think I'm going to stick to my guns and I'm going to give Eleanor an MVP nod. It's a strong episode for her. She's been a good support for Max, and with some good kind of growth. Let's just forget it's short-lived for now. It would be at this point when they do the short plot scene with them learning about what went down after Silver's visit, but I've covered that. Yeah, and of course, Woods, Rogers and Flint have that scene. But yeah, I'm actually going to talk about that last as it plays in the episode with this Flint and Silver section. So yeah, let's finish with John Silver, Flint, and yeah, Woods, Rogers popping up as a big talking point again. Oh. So yeah, a nice little scene with Flint, Silver, Vane and Maddie and I think it might be Joshua. I've really got to make sure it is, because I thought another character was Joshua. So I'll have to double check that at some point. So yeah, short scene with all of them in the captain's cabin, kind of going over the plan. But yeah, it's all going to play out in already discussed plot and, next episode. So I don't need to go over a lot of it. A couple of silent looks between Maddie and Silver, which are interesting to note. Following on from him giving her a lot of insight into where he is mentally. Flint's initial plan is for him to go and recruit the men. And Vane once again questions the men's loyalties. What's the point? What makes Flint think they won't just desert them again? And that's when Billy comes up with an idea of sending someone else. If he really wants them to be terrified of going against them, it shouldn't be him delivering the message. He's basically saying, no ghost story I've ever heard begins with a ghost introducing himself. I love this from Billy Bones. In Treasure Island, it's Billy Bones who sets up Long John Silver in the beginning as this formidable, larger-than-life, scary character. So yeah, it's a nice touch from the writers. He says he can think of no one better to get in the men's heads and make as much impact as possible, and he doesn't finish as Silver is like, and who will be able to take their eyes off the one-legged creature? Silver hated that. Again, only Maddie will truly understand how much he hated that in this moment. But yeah, so this is the scene. This is the scene. Silver arrives on Nassau, just absolutely badass shot of him walking towards the inn, with some men in tow, including Billy. So yeah, the ledger, that's full of everyone's pardons, everyone's names that have signed it, lay on a table. It's silent as Silver enters. I understand this is the place cowards come to beg forgiveness from a king. He's about to demand they beg it from another one. This is such a good performance from Luke Arnold. Silver is truly terrifying in this scene, and as he'll say in a little bit, he's loving it. I love the subtle way, when he first touches the book, he does a little kind of wipe of his hands, stained by the betrayal contained in it. So yeah, he lays into them, he tells them they crossed the wrong man. He's here to act on Captain Flint's behalf, and that Flint's not dead, and he's pissed off with a lot of them, basically. He says every name in that book belongs to a man who pledged his service to Captain Flint, and who turned their back on that pledge. This volume now belongs to me, he says, picking it up. He says with Flint returning tomorrow, any man that joins him on the beach will be accepted back, his name redacted and forgiven. But any names still remaining will not be forgotten, and they will hear from him again. Up until now, you can hear a pin drop. But of course, who's been lurking out of sight? It's our old chum, our old buddy, our old pal, Dufresne. This is a beautiful scene. So yeah, Dufresne, he gives it the big un to John. He insults him, belittles him, in this message of warning. This is a twofold issue for John. He's insulted his deformity, which we know he hates. Anyone thinking of him less than because of it. And he's weakening his threat, weakening their plan with every kind of disregard that keeps spilling from his mouth. Contented men have short memories, and they have little reason to fear the dark. Flint's name is already half forgotten. As for you, even whole, you're unworthy of half the attention we paid you. Harsh words from Dufresne, absolutely angered beyond, you can just see it on his face. So Silver puts down the book, and after he just smacks him with a cup, and then he just proceeds to really make his statement to everyone watching. Unfortunately for Dufresne, that statement would be stomping his head in. Rest in piss, sir. Rest in piss. Started off as a strong character, quite likeable in that first season, but then power got to his head, didn't it? And he just got too kind of big for his boots, and he turned, and yeah, been a very unpleasant character since then. But yeah, it's visible to see Silver is in absolute agony, but he will not stop. And yeah, better to talk about the whys in his next scene with Flint. So yeah, Silver finishes by saying the absolute classic: tomorrow you will join us, or you will all be looking over your shoulders for the rest of your lives. My name is John Silver, and I have a long fucking memory. Woo! That is quote of the episode for me, and yeah, that's an absolute badass moment for Silver, earning him an MVP nomination. Treasure Island lore is really set up here, you know. We knew before the show started about Long John Silver. Everybody's heard of that name, you know, whether you've read the book or not. But for the show and the creators to pay that off from a small kind of season 1 moment of him memorising a schedule, to this callback to it, add to that, you know, earlier Billy talking about a ghost story and how it shouldn't be the ghost that tells it. First big Treasure Island payoff they've had since you kind of begin the show with the All Loose Treasure Island prequel. You know, Billy Bones, John Silver, and how quickly that's forgotten because these characters and this show just becomes its own kind of thing. I mean, with Ben Gunn's intro as well, they're slowly reeling some things in, you know, to get that excitement up for book readers. So yeah, Maddie joins them as they're leaving, and she can sense John's in discomfort, but he sort of tells her quickly he's fine, and he plays it off. As, you know, Billy and some of the others are still about, so he doesn't obviously want them to know. So yeah, the weapons are being loaded as promised, and Maddie is standing on the balcony with Flint, observing the men talking over what they just witnessed. But it is, of course, Flint in this moment in relation to Silver I want to get into with their great scene. So yeah, talking about the Eleanor and Max parallels this episode and how they're realising their similarities. Really seeing these last couple of episodes how John Silver is getting closer to being a mirror to Flint, and how he knows it now as well. He's aware of it. How part of him is telling himself it's to keep up with Flint, you know, want to check on him, but how we'll start to learn here, he's enjoying it a little bit now. The power, the fear. He's observing here to Flint, he didn't feel the pain as he did it, but he's feeling it now. We at first, you know, assume he means physical, but it's relatable to Flint. As he observes, he wasn't just talking about the leg. We've seen Flint act on impulse in the heat of the moment, and only regret it after, once he's cooled down a little bit. Not even always regret it. So yeah, Flint has a heart-to-heart with him in this moment. He tells him he was right about the toll it took on him in playing this part as the villain. He talks about Miranda and what losing her drove him to. So yeah, he knows what Silver's feeling in this moment. Silver says, you know, he watched him assuming it was loneliness, sorrow, and terror at what he was becoming, but then says, there is an element of this journey into the dark I'm only now beginning to appreciate. How good it feels. We don't see Flint's reaction to that, but a conversation that they definitely do pick up again. And so for time, I'm going to put a pin in that now and in this conversation. But yeah, again, great parallels between the two, and Flint just looking into a mirror at someone he sort of helped create at this moment. Master and student, you know, on kind of equal footing now. It's becoming clear that student really could shift that balance, you know, at any time now. Again, so many more great discussions to kind of come on that front with those two in the future. So yeah, I will keep that very short, that scene, and there will be more with this to get into. So yeah, final scene to discuss when Flint met Woods Rogers. So yeah, Silver, Billy, and Maddie, they approach Nassau, and Flint spots him sitting on the beach. Flint's almost impressed. He smiles. He knows exactly what he's doing and what he's playing at. By sitting there, you know, he puts the men off coming to meet them just through shame of his judgment. And so he approaches and they meet. First thing Woods Rogers says is Lord Thomas Hamilton. Imagine dropping Thomas's name first. Great tactical games again from him. Stuns Flint for a moment, I think. Eleanor has obviously given him the lowdown on a few things. And yeah, Woodes Rogers, he discusses the pardons and Thomas's efforts in making them come to be. Without them, he wouldn't have been successful in getting as far as he has here. And Flint gives sort of an uninterested look away here. He sort of knows what's going on, I think, what he's playing at. All I have done here is finish what you began. I am now what you were then, and without you, there would be no me. But Flint, I think he can see through all of this just as quick as I think Jack did last episode. He gives a smile and a kind of clever, another block in the road for Woodes Rogers. You know, another big name pirate just not buying into it. Flint says, so that's what this is. You know, we're all reasonable men. We all want the same thing. You offer a pardon and this ends, sort of thing. And Woodes Rogers, he sounds so reasonable here when he's saying, sure, why not? Like, yeah, I really want to believe he's good and 100% genuine in all this, and he's never been so convincing as he has in this scene for me. Again, maybe in his own mind, I think, as well, until the moment he doesn't get his way. When someone just says, nah, to him, or they give him a bit of hassle, whatever form that may take. You know, in this case, it's complete disregard and disinterest from Flint in what he's saying. It's all civil here until Flint makes the point that Thomas was killed for trying to make peace with England. Miranda was killed for it. England has shown herself to me, gnarled and grey and spiteful of anyone who would find happiness under her rule. I'm through seeking anything from England except her departure from my island. I mean, yeah, same, mate, to be honest. So they come to a stalemate. So there we are then. You know, they sort of go, so there we are then. It's like I say, Woodes Rogers just wasn't... He thinks he's being so reasonable. He thinks he's just... There's no way anyone would want to argue with this. And he doesn't understand, I don't think. So yeah, Woodes Rogers sort of says, you know, what a story you'll have to spin to your men to turn me into the kind of villain worth losing their lives over. Damn, what a line from Woodes Rogers again. To which Flint just replies with a smile. He's lived on the other side of those stories. I'm sure I'll figure something out. I think he respects Flint. I think he respects the man sitting in front of him right now. He's met his match a bit, and though it's going to frustrate him, and we're going to see how it's going to frustrate him, he secretly, I think he does like this. He likes this challenge. He's heard nothing but stories for weeks now, you know, about Flint, and yeah, maybe they're sort of living up to them for him in this moment. Again, he's playing the part of governor, you know, looking out for everyone's best interests well, and being civil and being reasonable. But yeah, like he's done with Jack already, here comes the threat. I am reasonable in seeking peace, but if you insist on making me your villain, I'll play the part. His tone changes, and the threat is laid down. He says, from now on, any men involved in piracy will be assumed to be one of Flint's. I will hunt him, I will catch him, and I will hang him. Well, that turned quick, didn't it? That turned quick. You know, he says, I am no backwater magistrate cowering in fear of you. I am one of you. I am just as bad as you. He's not saying that, obviously, in as many words, but he's not one of those in the fancy wigs and all that. So yeah, he finishes with, you know where to find me, and yeah, that's the meeting done. So yeah, Flint and co, you know, they're going to have to think of something else, because yeah, no man is going to come and join them while he's sat there. So yeah, which of course leads, you know, into the next couple of episodes. So yeah, again, I'll put a little pin in that plot point, because otherwise this is just going to be too long. But yeah, my God. What a scene, what an episode. I've pinged him about a bit in the discussions, but as I gave Eleanor an MVP nomination, I'm also going to give Woodes Rogers one, you know. I do not like him, I really don't, but when he just turns like this, when he shows his true face, I can at least respect him. So far, he's only doing it one-on-one, you know, he's being very good with it. He's done it with Jack, he's shown it a little snippet of it with Jack, and we'll get a better snippet of it next episode. He's done it just here with Flint. You know, with the people that he knows he's got no chance of getting on side. That's when you see his face, his true face. Eleanor's had little glimpses, but obviously there's something a bit more with them too. But yeah, otherwise, he is playing that line, he's playing it so well that you almost do forget what we come to know for next season especially. So yeah, he deserves some credit for that by now, I think, and just being a really great character at this point. But yeah, on that note, I think that's everything character-wise. Just amazing character episode, this one. So yeah, let's get that MVP quickly sorted.
Last item.
Yeah, I said quickly sorted because this is one of those easy ones for me. Again, really strong nods to Woods, Rogers and Eleanor. Really interesting episodes for them and a lot of great stuff to get into. But this episode's MVP award is obviously John Silver's. I mean, come on. Absolutely badass scene at the tavern, you know, left a mark and made a stand, both on Dufresne's skull. Yeah. And then after admitting some truths to Madi last episode, he admits some to Flint. Yeah, Dufresne's been overdue a while now, so yeah, Silver finally calls in time. So yeah, that takes him up to 3 MVP wins. Yes, this might have been Woods Rogers' best chance to get on that MVP score sheet. I don't know, early season 4 maybe he might get another chance, but I'm giving him his nods anyway. Otherwise, I will be back very soon with episode 8. As seems to be the pattern now with me, you know, I come in strong and regular each season and I finish strong. Because I would just want to get on to the next, you know, like it's the first time, and I just don't want to get my thoughts out. But I bumble through those middle couple of episodes a bit when the enthusiasm does drop a smidge, and I lose maybe 2 or 3 weeks. We're getting there. That's the main thing. Otherwise, I'll let you go, because damn. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you very soon for a very exciting, action-packed episode 8. Okay, take care. Peace out. Bye.